All right. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Waiting in the Sky podcast with me, TJ Starman. This is another review episode, and today I am joined by Aaron Winston once again to talk about Uncharted, the movie that made its debut this past week, starring Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. Aaron, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty alright. Yeah, fresh from the movie. Saw it at 11 a.m. today, so my ideas and thoughts on it are pretty fresh. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here. I knew after our last conversation that we were going to have to bring you back to chat through the actual movie once we had both experienced it. And so I know it's fresh in your mind today. So we're recording on the Sunday, February 20th. So a couple of days after the movie was released to the public. I went and saw it Friday night. So also fresh thoughts, but not quite as fresh as yours, having seen it today already.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, it's gonna be good to have your fresh mind on this because I think, the best way to go through this is probably just gonna kinda start at the beginning and go through the movie and then share our overall thoughts to wrap things up. I know we also made some predictions in, the last episode, so wanna make sure we swing back around to those predictions and see how we ended up doing, but, so let's start at the beginning. Uh, Aaron, did you pick up on what I picked up on with the way that they started this movie? Let's see if your brain went where mine did.
Probably not because to be honest, we were a little late. So I know, it was horrible. I was like, great, I have to review this, and I didn't see, but it seems as if it just got started. Um, for me to say the first we're good to say things happen in the film, right? Just
Yes, yes. So, so this is gonna be a spoiler review. So if you're not interested in spoilers, go ahead and tune out. Come back once you've seen the movie because we're gonna spoil things for sure.
um
But Aaron, so what you missed apparently, uh, was exactly what you said though. It did just start, and it was a cold open, and I got big Uncharted 2 vibes with the way that it literally started with the cliffhanger with Nathan Drake. Where he's like his foot is stuck in a cargo, um, like a cargo package that's hanging off of the plane, and that's how it starts. And then it shows him kind of working his way back towards the plane, and then cuts to a flashback. So that then the story progresses naturally from that point. But that's what Uncharted 2 did with the train sequence.
yeah, it's definitely borrowing from the game, and that's nice. Something they did out the game. I mean, I guess no, in Uncharted 2, yeah, you do go in and out of the flashback a few times before it all connects together. So yeah, it didn't really seem like they touched back on anything like that in the movie. Like, so I guess that just happened, and you just get straight to the adventure that leading up to that situation, and you just go on from there. So, well, that's nice.
Yeah, so I thought it was kind of a nice callback to the games and something that they did there. Then the flashback goes to something from the most recent game, which is actually a big part of the movie, which is the brotherhood between Sam and Nate, which I definitely mocked in the last episode, but it seems that at least from the movie perspective, they really wanted to double down on that relationship, and so they set it up with that opening scene after the initial cargo plane sequence, and kind of establish the relationship between the brothers. That Sam is looking out for Nate, but they get separated, and Sam's going off on adventures, and Nate kind of has to deal with things on his own and hopefully reconnect with his brother somewhere down the line. What did you think of the relationship that they established between those two?
Yeah, I mean, well, I watched this film not being married or connected to the game at all. I watched this thinking I'm watching a film in the Uncharted universe, if you may, or just a story that just based on the game, just as the characters from it. I really wasn't thinking about the games while I watched this film, and I wanted to go in anyway with that approach. So yeah, I was fine with the relationship, giving him, a reason to, want to seek things out in the world. Yeah, I personally found it okay. Was it as compelling as it came off in the game? Yeah. But again, it's also setting up, what some stories they may want to tell in the future. So I was fine with how he laid it out with the postcards and all that. I found that a nice touch. So
Yeah, definitely. They set that up that these two obviously go their separate ways, and then the one of the driving forces is that Sam had tried to connect with Nathan Drake through these postcards that he was sending him, and they ended up obviously playing a key role in the end of the movie. So we didn't see a lot of Sam, but he was throughout the entire movie. Like I think if you just wanted a fun drinking game with this movie, you could drink every time Tom Holland says "My brother Sam"
right.
because he says it a million times, even to people who very clearly know who his brother is. He doesn't need to say his name again, but he always says "My brother Sam." Uh, it's just something that I noticed, and so they really rolled with that relationship, and so it was clear that this was something that the filmmakers thought was a good piece of the lore from the games that they were going to roll with, and I think it works. Obviously, they try and set some stuff up at the end with Sam surprise being alive, which if you didn't see that coming, I don't know what to tell you because they never showed him. Like it was very clear that he was going to be alive at the end of this, and apparently geared up for a sequel. Um, there was a couple things. So the way that Nate meets Sully is Nate is a bartender in New York, and I mean my brain went right to Tom Holland in New York, and I just got upset that he wasn't Spider Man. What did you make of the sequence in which, Nathan Drake is bartending and he's, pulling moves to steal and pickpocket on his shift and Sully notices and tries to recruit him?
Yeah, that's actually when I came into the film. Yeah. So like before
Okay,
we
okay.
were, but yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, that's pretty much mirrors how Sully grew interested in him from the games. Like watching him. Oh yeah, he pickpockets his wallet, and so yeah, I liked how they kind of kept up with that. This is the type of guy that he is. He's just he's out for himself. That's all he knows. And it's nothing personal. He's just trying to survive. So so yeah, I really like that. I mean, then if you're gonna talk to me about the scene, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about my feelings on Sully, and that is, yeah, hashtag not my Sully. I enjoyed the dialogue. I felt it was very much the character, but the presence, I wasn't really feeling it with Mark Wahlberg. Oh, but I thought, all right, this works. When I saw how Tom Holland was Nathan, I was like, yeah, again, me being not so connected to the games, I was like, yeah, all right, I'm gonna have fun with this. I'm gonna enjoy this, and so, but yeah, overall though, I was like, okay, well, that's an okay Sully, but
Yeah, I think I see where you're coming from. I agree. I actually thought that the dialogue, worked really well for both Nate and Sully, where they actually came across very similar to, what we've seen of those characters in the games. But I agree with you. I think the presence of Mark Wahlberg, it's weird because he's a shorter guy. He's obviously very physically able, and the Sully in the games is obviously older, so he literally can't do some of the physical stuff. And so it's interesting because this just makes it out to be that Sully can do this stuff, but he is just so selfish or lazy that he chooses not to do
yeah,
some of this stuff, which is a new interesting dynamic to bring to it in the movie.
yeah, yeah. I like that though, actually.
Yeah, yeah. I think I could see, him growing into the character a little bit more, and it looked like they were trying to progress things throughout, like, you just see the personality change and the relationship between them develop as well, up to the point of having the mustache in the
Yeah.
post-credit scene, uh, as silly as that was. No, so I think that, I think that Nathan Drake also like, Tom Holland did a good job, and so it felt like them throughout the movie, and, so they end up connecting. Again, it's hinged on Sam's relationship with Sully, and so that's how Sam became aware of who Nathan Drake is, was through his brother, and he finds him, and they're after this treasure. And so then Sully takes him to this auction to try and get these golden keys. And this was cool because I like this scene where Nate is creating a distraction because this is really where I felt like that I was watching Uncharted because of the way he kind of stumbles into accomplishing the mission.
Yes,
Do you know what I
definitely.
mean?
Exactly what I thought. I was like, yeah, this is Uncharted. The hanging from the
It's
ceiling
like
and even riding the wire as it pulls from the ceiling all the way down to have like a safe fall. I was like, that's Nathan Drake. Yeah.
yes, yes, with, like, just kind of bumbling around and, like, it's, like, somewhat skilled, but really it, like, just seems lucky and just, has his charm on display and, like, the witty banter the entire time. I was like, "Okay, this is Uncharted." And if that was when it really clicked
Yeah.
for me there, and I thought that really worked, and that's something that stuck throughout the movie for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And they from there, it's this is where I'll get into. I really couldn't shake the feeling that I was also watching a National Treasure movie,
Mm,
and I don't know if you got any vibes like that.
mm. I wasn't trying to compare it to anything else like it. So that's yeah, so that would be a no for me. That's not what I initially thought, but now that you say it, now I can't unsee it.
Yeah, so it's just the way that they had, it was an adventure, a treasure hunt based on historical knowledge and information, and the way that they did like the going place to place, finding a new clue that's leading to a new direction, and it just very much felt like that. At least that first National Treasure movie to me. It's been a while since I watched the second one, but that was the vibe that I kind of had with obviously much more intense action to it. So I like National Treasure, so it wasn't like I disliked that. It just didn't feel incredibly unique to this movie. It would be the take that I had on that. But so we're introduced then to who we think is the big bad, which is what Antonio Banderas. Um, and also like was it? So I think that his like henchwoman's name, hired gun, is Joe Braddock, which is hilarious to me because I think I went to college with someone with that name. Um, but what did you think of them as villains in this movie?
I thought Antonio Banderas was pretty safe. Usually Uncharted has an older, uh, usually wealthy man, intimidating demeanor, and a lot of money. So and a lot and an accent. So yeah, he checked all the boxes of an Uncharted villain on the surface. So I was like, okay, all right. And then I didn't feel as if and he had to because if we're just gonna call it Banderas. I mean, this is he really was himself.
I didn't think he had a
Yeah,
name.
I mean, it was mentioned maybe a couple times, but
He may as well have been Puss in
you know that,
Boots.
that's what I okay. Since we're doing a spoiler review, yeah, that was gonna be my. I was gonna say that. Yeah, as soon as he came on screen, I got excited because him and Nathan were gonna have some, witty dialogue exchange that people could dub over as a Spider-Man versus Puss in Boots thing online. But as we,
I would watch
yeah,
that.
we I don't really believe we got anything like that out of that character with Nathan. But yeah, I mean yeah, like I said, on the surface, he was fine. I wasn't too thrilled, but I was like, okay, okay, all right, cool. I can roll with this. And then the Joe Braddock, whatever. Because then people refer to people with their just with their last name, and I'm like, I think I heard that, but I'm not sure. Um,
It's a mercenary thing.
yeah, definitely, yeah. Um, she, I like the look of the character. I liked, but I wasn't very compelled by her as a villain, as a baddie. I actually saw her as the throwaway baddie, the one that's just gonna be just there. And Nathan might have like a cool little showdown with her later, and that's what the character came there to do: be pretty and have a showdown. But no, they did a lot more with that character than I thought. Yeah. So-
They did, and it was interesting because at first they kind of hint at, like, her history with Sully, and I guess I'm thrown off by the ages of these characters overall because, like,
yeah.
how old am I supposed to think Mark Wahlberg is? Because I mean, I do think he's probably too old, like, I don't know how old that actress is, whatever, but it wouldn't be the most natural pairing if you just saw these 2 people, but then they just kind of transitioned her, obviously, like, when she, double crosses Antonio Banderas and gives the cleanest throat slit that leads to 0 blood whatsoever.
Right.
Um, she, like, went off a cliff at that point. It was just, like, full, like, evil, and, like, up to that point, she was not. And so I thought that could have been a little smoother of a transition. Like, I think they hinted at her getting more and more frustrated with being, like, ordered around, and then, like, when he Antonio Banderas had revealed his other deal with Chloe that, like, she was betrayed, and so they kind of hinted at things, but then she just went full evil after that, and that didn't track for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly how I felt. I wasn't. In fact, if anything, I felt a lot of the stakes of for the characters, got lessened by her overtaking the situation as the main baddie because I'm like, I don't think it's gonna be hard for Nathan to double cross and outsmart this woman. So as we get to other characters, we'll discuss kind of a thought I had with a friend on what I felt they could have done with that type of thought with this film. But yeah, yeah. Overall,
Sure,
cool
yeah.
villains, but mm, yeah, not too real.
Yeah, and so there's the film is basically constructed around 2 big set pieces, and one was the cargo plane that they opened with and then they come back to in the middle of the movie, and then obviously they end with, like, the pirate ships being carried by the helicopters, and both of those things are really cool. Like, those ideas are really cool, and I think they did a pretty good job overall with the action in those scenes. There is some, like, little iffy CGI with some of the characters, that you is very noticeable. But aside from that, like, it's imagining a fight going on 2 pirate ships, like, in the sky, like, it was fun, and that's all I was really looking for.
Yeah,
What was your take on the action in the movie overall?
yeah, yeah. It gave me, what I wanted. People got shot, people got punched, people got hit with various things that were broken off of walls. I mean, yeah, it was Uncharted. I really liked the sequence in which we had to destroy or we had to vandalize a Papa John's to save the lives of Chloe and Nathan.
Yes.
I was of all the product placement. I was like, wow, okay. But yeah,
Well, yeah, that was one of the notes that I had was I just literally I had to write down that line, which was, "I'm literally in a Papa John's right now."
yeah.
One of the best lines in the whole movie. Like, there were some funny one-liners in this. It wasn't overall all that funny. Like, some of it was funnier because it was a little cheesy, but that was one that legitimately got a laugh out of me.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I enjoyed that. But no, I really liked how that was set up. I was like, okay, well, this glass, oh, what is it? Plexiglass, the one that they use for extra security. You can't even break through it, and he was trying to, but then Broderick shows up, and all right, cool. So we get the fighting, and but that my heart was pounding though, because I was like, oh my god, just like in the game when we're going through crazy danger and mofos still want to fight and shoot you. I'm like, oh my gosh, do you think now is the time for this? But
Right,
I
right.
liked how it's got that same feeling when Nathan and Chloe are about to drown, and Sully needs to unlock this door. He has to figure out how to break this thing.
Yeah.
Like it's already enough challenge, but then a baddie has to show up and prolong things. But yeah, I like how that was set up. With how she shot at him, missed, but break enough of the glass that he slams her through it, and yep, there you go. He's able to put the key in, and they're able to get out of the room filling with water, and all is well. So yeah, no, I really
Yeah.
liked how they have moments like that. Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, and I knew there was going to be enough thought with the choreography of the action, and just the different points of how they set things up. I feel like the game is like that as well. You don't have a weapon, but something happened. You're like, how am I gonna get out of this without a weapon? But something then falls on somebody, or a sequence of events happens, and you end up getting your weapon and progressing the story. So yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, that was it. They definitely did have that kind of feel to it throughout, which I was pretty satisfied with overall because I think it did make it feel more like an Uncharted movie and make it feel more like the essence of the game that it was the base of this movie. So I thought that was fun. Speaking of which, the Nolan North cameo, we obviously have to mention that.
That was
That was the
awesome.
cheesiest thing, but I was here
I
for it
was.
because I got it right away, obviously. But there were some people in the theater like that very clearly had no idea like who this dude was.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely made sure I whispered to my
But
friend, like, "Hey, that's the voice. That's him. That's the guy. That's the guy."
yep, that's the guy. We were all the Leo DiCaprio meme pointing at the screen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, I know that
So that was cool. That
voice.
was cool. I think so. For me, like where I'm gonna go back to how made the National Treasure comparison, because it was so much like that to me by the end of it that like if I was making the Honest Trailers video for this, I would probably name it at the end where they do the spoof title. I would call it Nathaniel Treasure. That's the name I would go with. Because the way he just stumbles into things and the clues, and it's always random. Like at one point, they're like, "Oh, you have to put the keys together, and that's how it opens." Okay, like I guess that's fine. Or there's the one point where it's like, "Oh, I need to stick these keys onto a map and then randomly twist them, and where they connect is where the treasure is hidden." I didn't understand what was going on. I just was following this charismatic adventurer, which is Tom Holland instead of Nicolas Cage in this case. But that's where it came from for me, is it was that and all the double crossing and the lies and things like that. But overall, like I definitely had a lot of fun with this movie. Like I would be up for sequels. I think that the for the most part that the performances did the characters justice. I think the story was pretty like it's pretty shallow overall, but, like, I wasn't expecting a very deep experience from this. Did you feel similarly to it? Like, what was your kind of overall take?
That was definitely my overall take, and I knew that I could easily see that being how the film made me feel. I knew that okay, with this kind of genre, with this type of cast, with this approach to Uncharted and being younger versions of the characters that we already have gone through so much with throughout those 4.5 games. I was okay to get different take on it, and I felt overall happy with it. Again, I did not go into this comparing it to the games, or even other films of this same genre, or similar films like this. I just went into it looking for a good setup, um for a good adventure with Tom Holland and other folks, and I feel that's what we got. I'm do think I need to think about Chloe a little bit more. I'm not exactly sure how I felt about her portrayal. How did you feel about Chloe overall?
So Chloe, like in the games, Chloe is immediately like you recognize this like just aura and vibe that she has. Like she is a badass, like immediately. And she's like, I don't know, like she's seductive and but like just very dangerous. And you get that vibe from her immediately. And I think they really tried to convey those aspects of the character. And I don't think it was necessarily the actor's fault because I think some of the dialogue like, took away some of, like, the bitiness that Chloe shows in the games. Um, I think she has potential, but she was a little bit of a letdown just because the character is done so well in the game series, so she was competing with that, and it would've been hard to pull off a victory, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really would have been okay with it only being Nathan and Sully, having being the only characters from the games used in the movie. I even felt like we needed Chloe in this movie, but I mean, I guess if they're trying to set up that history to bring in Elena for future films, who knows where they're gonna go with this. Because as of now, I guess we're still in, like, younger Nathan Drake years.
Yeah, so, yeah, the timeline I went back and forth with this too because I did kind of wanna see Elena, uh, but with the timeline, even in the games, like, he meets Chloe first, and he has, like, that history with Chloe by the time he actually meets Elena. And it looks like they're almost set at the end of the movie that they're almost setting up directly into kind of like a start of Drake's fortune. So I think obviously we can plan on Elena showing up in the sequel. Uh, if I put you on the spot right now, Aaron, do you think you could cast Elena Fisher? I've got one,
Florence
so
Pugh.
I'll buy you like 2 more
Well,
minutes.
I said Florence Pugh.
Florence,
It
okay, Florence Pugh definitely would work.
but you,
I
you
think
you
that would
said right
work.
on the spot. Like I'm like, "Ooh, okay, I young, people who could, because then also considering where Uncharted goes from the first one to A Thief's End, I kind of assumed these were all people in their, you know, 30s, and we end in maybe their early 40s. I don't know. Nathan looks, I mean, he looks kind of older as the games. At least I felt in 4 he looked. Am I crazy for thinking he looks older in 4 than in the other ones?
No, I mean, I think he's definitely like time has passed significantly. I don't know how much time between Drake's Fortune and A Thief's End, but definitely he's weathered at that point. And I think you're right. I think he was at least like late 20s in the first game, like early 30s probably. And I think they obviously had to go wanted to go younger with the movie franchise so that they can, keep people around and do a bunch of them if they want to.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, here's what I thought for casting Elena Fisher in the sequel. I think Florence Pugh is a great choice. I was thinking Haley Lou Richardson. She was in The Edge of 17 and Glass.
Mm, okay, not a bad. Yeah, yeah. I'm recognizing.
Or not Glass, Split.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I knew we say glass. I was like, yeah. So the blonde girl.
Yep, the
Yeah,
blonde
yeah. I
girl.
knew that's what you were referring to. Yeah.
That's what I could
Okay,
see.
yeah. Not bad. Yeah. It's just that's
So, okay, it sounds like we were in a similar area with how we felt about this movie. Like in general, I thought it did a good job for, and it cleared my low bar. And so
right.
when we talked about what our expectations were, I asked you to come up with a Rotten Tomatoes score prediction, and I gave one as well. So I listened back to it. It's you had said probably for the audience somewhere between 60 to 80%. And so kind of the middle is around 70% audience score. I had said 38% critics, 62% audience. And so I was actually really close to the critics because it was 39%
Yeah. I saw that.
critic score. But this is what blew my mind. You were closer with the audience score because it's at 90%,
Mm.
which means, like, people are having fun with this movie.
You just can't compare to the games. You just have to see it as a fun Uncharted adventure. Honestly, and I don't have that much experience comic books, but there was enough of those animated series when we were kids in the 90s, X-Men, Spider-Man, There's pretty sure there's more than I don't know why I'm blanking. But point is, when we got those live action films in the 2000s, I did not compare those. I didn't even watch the Tomb Raider film really compare it to the game. I don't know, when I watch video game movies or anything that's adapted from something, I try to really keep a fresh mind and not compare it to the original source material. Maybe I guess just seeing so many disappointed book fans when their favorite books become movies. I think that's just it's helped me. I'm gonna just cut that part of my brain off that compares it to the source, anything to the source material, because that just seems to not do well for people. So this one, if you don't do that, you'll be fine. It's a by default, it's a fine film. It's
Right, right.
now
If
watch.
you can kind of go into it the way that you did and kind of without the weight of the expectations, like the friends that I went with are definitely not familiar with the games and they liked it. So I think for sure this is a movie that's going to appeal to a wide audience and even probably more so to the people who are not familiar with the game series as much as the people who are. Um, Aaron, if you had to give this movie a review rating out of 5, where would you land?
I give it a 3.
That is exactly where I landed as well. I said a 3 out of 5, which would make it fresh, in both of our books for whatever that's worth. Like, I thought it was a lot of fun. There was just a lot that you could, make fun of. I thought Tom Holland did a good job. I definitely think he came across as a young Nathan Drake. I think it'll be interesting to see if he can mature his performance in sequels because I do think that the character matures a lot. And I think seeing more of an older, more mature Nathan with, like, different concerns, like, it seemed like in the movie, all he was concerned about was finding his brother, and, finding this treasure obviously was a part of that, and so I would love to see them take it in a direction where I mean, we've already seen it Tom Holland do it in the Spider-Man movies, but if he is playing a character that has, greater concerns than what is immediately in front of him, I think he can bring a lot of weight to that performance. So I think that there's a lot of potential for these sequels. I'm still going to keep the low bar when I see them when they're eventually made. But I think that overall, like, I think they did a good job of setting up a Uncharted movie franchise.
Yeah, yeah, I'm cool with this. Yeah, more cool than Mortal Kombat and Resident Evil. That we
Which is a great segue, Aaron, because we will definitely have you back on the main show to talk about the full, story and all of our gripes with video game movies as a whole. Um, but I think this is a good place to wrap up our conversation about
Oh
Uncharted.
yeah.
So, any last points you want to make before we sign off?
I'm happy to see Uncharted still be in the limelight. I'm happy that and not fail. If anything, I hope this encourages people to play the games, and that make you even more excited for the sequels to come out. Which again, we are also enjoying this movie having has set a low bar. But yeah, I play the games if you liked the movie. It's a great next step.
For sure. Yes, I definitely think that this game or this movie, excuse me, it was good enough to bring validation to games as an art form, and I think that's a reason that gamers have wanted video game movies to be successful, like, for so long, and why it's been so frustrating is because we haven't seen one that has really validated games as an art form yet. And I think this did a good job of kind of crossing things, but keeping it in a way that's digestible in both mediums. So overall, I was pleased with this, and I'm excited to see where they go from here. But that is going to wrap us up for this review episode of the Waiting in the Sky podcast on Uncharted. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I'm so sorry that we just spoiled everything. So hopefully you have seen the movie and that you've formulated your own opinions. If you've not played the games, please go back and play them. There's a lot of fun to be had in those stories. But thank you again, Aaron. I appreciate you being here. Keep an eye out on social media. If you're not following at In the Sky Pod on all of your favorite social media channels, please do so. Please review, subscribe to the podcast. It helps out a lot. I would appreciate it personally. But until the next time, take it easy.